and welcome to Newsclick. Today we are talking about the communal polarization in UP and maybe beyond after Muzaffarnagar. And to discuss this, we have with us today senior journalist Seema Mustafa, associated with the Center for Policy Analysis. Welcome to Newsclick. Seema, last time you were here on Newsclick, and we were discussing what would happen because the BJP had just announced that Modi would be the campaign leader. They hadn't yet anointed him the PM candidate. In that interview, I clearly remember you had warned that if Modi is going to lead the campaign, then the BJP was bound to trigger communal polarization of votes one way or the other, through riots or through any other means. We have just seen the riots in Muzaffarnagar in UP. Do you think this is part of that pattern?
Oh yes, oh yes. And Muzaffarnagar, we went in a fact finding there as a team, and it's like a mini Gujarat because a lot of the things that you saw in play in Gujarat have come into play here. The one lesson they seem to have learned through Gujarat is that they mustn't have too many deaths. So, figures like 1500 Muslims killed or 2000 Muslims killed earns them international criticism. Forget the national. So, in Muzaffarnagar, they've kept the numbers a little down, but they have, by spreading lies, distortions, and then that triggering of violence, spread it across the belt, in which 50 to 55,000 Muslims, mostly Muslims, maybe 700 Dalits or less, have been displaced. And not just displaced, they become refugees because their houses have been burnt and plundered, they have been attacked by the villagers, so now they're so terrified that they can't go back to whatever they've left behind. So it's a huge crisis.
And what we see happening in Muzaffarnagar, and there has obviously been a communal polarization. Muslims who have been displaced are now scared to go back. Tension prevails in the area. Is there a danger of seeing this spread to other parts of UP? Or because of the different composition of eastern and central UP compared to west, will we have to wait for another type of communal conflagration in that part of the state?
Muzaffarnagar has come as part, of course it's a much worse part, of a whole bunch of little communal incidents which have dotted the landscape of Uttar Pradesh over the last several months. Almost 100 little incidents. Not little, because the people, even if there are not that many dead and even if a few houses have been burned, the attack is so traumatic and a communal confrontation is so traumatic that it has its impact not just in the little town but in the countryside.
Sure.
So I think through those incidents they've already been polarizing votes, and Muzaffarnagar is the big icing on the BJP RSS Vishwa Hindu Parishad cake. So, and that is spread terror not just across UP. I mean, you find now Muslims all over India and secular people all over India extremely worried and concerned about the trend that we are seeing.
This belt of Muzaffarnagar, Shamli, Bagpat, we know it's a Jat dominated area, but the Muslims there are not in small numbers either.
Yeah.
They're fairly large numbers. Many areas have as much as 30% Muslim population. Yet we have seen this happen there. How come it has been this easy for the BJP to spread this in an area which has not been known for communal tensions? Muslims and Jats in this region have lived together as farmers for a long time.
I think, there is a history. They've been, you're right, the Jats and Muslims have also voted together, and there is a certain level of camaraderie and a certain kind of social harmony between them. But over the last several months, maybe even a year, there have been incidents from that whole entire belt. Deoband is also situated there, of Muslims going in trains and buses and having their beards pulled and being attacked at different levels. So obviously my theory would be the Amit Shah presence, so that you unleash these forces which we know are very base forces, and just give them instructions, your RSS cadres,
and
to
create.
harass Muslims. Don't do anything by which it becomes a huge incident, but keep adding to the tension. So the tensions were building up for several months in that area altogether. And then they started these rumors. After these tensions, then the rumors, your girls are not safe,
Yeah.
and this whole Bahu and love jihad and everything that started. And then you just have to ignite a fire. I mean, you
these
and I
are
could be walking on the
quite-
road, have
and
an
then
argument,
something-
and there's
Well, of course, these are very classic RSS
Absolutely.
tactics, known very well, repeated ad nauseum for so many years, and yet, unfortunately, people are falling for it.
people are following for it also, Raghu, and also because you have no counter-secular campaign.
Exactly.
You have a state that is compromised. I mean, you have a state government at the center and in Lucknow which are compromised, which feed these communal forces rather than confront them and directly defeat them.
I was in fact going to ask you, the role of the SP of the Samajwadi Party has come under severe scrutiny, and there are many people who talk about this competitive communalism now between the SP and the BJP. What kind of role do you see the SP having played in these Muzaffarnagar?
See, the SP and the BJP, I really do believe that they had some kind of an understanding that we'll have all these incidents that we are talking about in various towns, and so polarization of votes will take place. You can take some level of the Hindu vote, and we'll take the Muslim and some of the backward, and let's see who wins at the end of the day. But I think Muzaffarnagar just went out because, the Samajwadi, they're stupid and they're illiterate and they're idiotic, and I don't mean illiterate in that classist sense. And when it blew into the villages. And that they were not prepared for. I mean, Samajwadi people told us that they thought, the violence would be in Muzaffarnagar town. And once it spreads to the village, it's a first, which means that what is the secular bulwark really is broken, and it's completely gone. And that they are not now being able to cope with. And I think there was inefficiency by the government, but incompetence, but yet they failed to prevent it. They had information, they failed to prevent it. They failed to control the violence because it's still on. They're not being able to do that counter. And third, which I find amazing, I mean, for which they don't even have a fig leaf to hide behind, is the rehabilitation of 55,000 refugees living in camps which they have started. I mean, there is not a single state-run camp. Can you believe it? I mean, food is coming from the community. People ran in their bare feet without any clothes on their back. They didn't have anything. There's no police picket there. There's no police force there. There's nobody registering FIRs. There's nobody distributing relief. There are no medical doctors. There are little babies, pregnant women, people who've been attacked, people who've been injured, who've been traumatized. There is nothing what you define the state as visible in any of these camps. Now, where is the Samajwadi there?
So why do you think this is happening? Is this incompetence or is this collusion?
I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both, because either one doesn't completely explain the phenomenon.
Sure.
Incompetence cannot be to this point that you can't run a relief camp. Collusion cannot be alone by itself to a point where you're so naked in your collusion.
Right.
So I think it's a mixture of both.
Can I ask you, we know that from the Muzaffarnagar incidents that took place, the rabble-rousing that was done in the big Mahapanchayat that was organized, you had not only the BJP rabble-rousers, but you also had people from the Congress, you also had people from the BSP who were doing the rabble. Is this just local opportunism, or is this a little more than that?
I think there's a difference, because somehow rabble-rousing has now become part of today's politics. Whoever's your vote bank, you go over there, you address that vote bank and say anything irresponsible. You forget that we are living in a secular country. You say the basest things. The difference here was, I think that the Congress Muslim chaps and that BSP fellow and others were doing it as part of usual politics on the eve of an election that's coming. What they didn't realize, maybe, is that because there is no evidence of that kind of planning by them, they were all individuals and political adversaries, they didn't realize they're playing into a much larger plan which is already in place by the RSS and the BJP.
This is what I was coming to. And I had started off by talking about the interview you and I had
Yeah.
here a few months ago. And we were able, in that sense, during that interview, we were talking about the prospects of this communal polarization. Surely other political parties on the ground
Exactly.
in Uttar Pradesh should have seen this coming. How is it that they are not?
That is, I think, that's where there is incompetency. I think they are not just incompetent, they're callous, they're indifferent, they've lost touch with the people, they're corrupt. When we talk of corruption, corruption just doesn't mean stashing money.
That's right.
You corrupt your minds, you corrupt your thinking, you corrupt your contact with the people. And this is what's happened to these jokers.
Right.
So they don't know anything. They're not reading anything right. And even if they have got the signals, which I think most of them would have because it was being communalized, they didn't care. Because they didn't realize that it would become so big, where their consolidation would not work in their favor at all. Now the Muslims don't want to vote for any of that.
In the context of the elections, how do you see this playing out in the coming months? And do you see any steps that are being taken or are likely to be taken by the state, by the leading political actors in this scenario to check this growing communalization, or do you see that this will continue to exacerbate until the elections?
See, that is where the entire, I think, our concerns and fears arise from. This kind of communalism we've had in the past, but there's always been to some level a counter campaign.
Right.
It might have come suddenly through the Janata Dal at some point, or there had been this campaign. This time there's no counter. I mean, you had the Prime Minister of India and Sonia Gandhi going over there, airdropping there, going to one camp, coming back. After that, what? What? Have they flooded the area? They cannot, dismiss governments, or they don't want to do other things, which is not going to resolve the problem. But why didn't they flood that area with Congress workers?
Right.
Why? They've got so much, they're sitting on so much money. The political party could have distributed relief,
Sure.
which could have just moved the entire members and the entire UP party into Muzaffarnagar and the areas around. Nothing. They just came, made their political point, hope, and they really feel. What I'm just amazed is how today's politician really thinks that by dropping in like that, you're going to get the votes.
Right.
The people are not going to vote for them because the people are not that stupid. On the other hand, you have the communal forces over there, completely working together. They did a fantastic job by their standards. They were able to create the violence. The violence is still simmering.
Sure.
Their men were not arrested till 10-12 days. It's only now that the BJP chaps were arrested.
And greeted with
And
namaskars
inside the jail, yes. And they've come out like heroes because they have spoken for India, the macho new image of India.
Right.
So, where is the counter campaign? So, whoever is more organized is going to always win, isn't he? And I'm not talking of votes only.
Yeah. So let me ask you a last question. With political parties being complacent, incompetent, corrupt in this context in UP, the people also know, and we have seen this in Ayodhya, we've seen this elsewhere, when this parikrama was planned by the VHP earlier, the people also see through this communal game for what it is. And surely people must have seen through what is happening in Muzaffarnagar as well. Do you think that at least there would be some momentum gathering before the elections, that people would realize what this has happened and that the communal tension and atmosphere would dissipate?
See, the people are already realizing it. I mean, when we went to the camps, the arguments were all political, that we've been used, these guys have done this, they were attacking the state government, they were very unhappy with that. The whole thing wasn't that the BJP has done it, it was also what the other parties have done. There was a lot of that, in fact, more of that than the other. But the point is, you have to have people and a political intervention, state intervention, bringing the communities together, making them sit together, letting them go back. I mean, if you have 55,000 people
Staying
displaced, you basically effectively disenfranchised them, haven't you?
Sure.
So they're not really voters. And you're going to spread that fear through that region. And we're not supposed to predict violence, but since you're sitting on a tinderbox, UP and Bihar, can see much more of this in the coming months.
Thank you, Seema.
Thank you.